Dr. Robert Anthony Pape is an American political scientist specializing in security affairs and in particular suicide terrorism. He's currently an associate professor at the University of Chicago. He's a professor of political science. In 2005, he wrote a book called Dying to Win, where he mentions that suicide bombing were alien to Islam and that there is no mention of suicide killings in either the Quran or the Sahih Hadith. So he said that the concept of suicide bombings is absolutely alien to Islam. Islam has never projected suicide killings or suicide attacks or anything of the sort. This is something that is not religious, it's nationalistic. It has a nationalist element to it. And the first people who started these suicide killings were the Tamil Tigers. Then you had the Kamikazes. So this is a concept completely alien to Islam, started by somebody else, and then eventually now, if you type in again suicide bomber on Google, who do you get? Guy with the beard, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's the impression we have of a suicide bomber now. He mentioned further that there were no suicide bombings in Iraq before the US started Operation Desert Storm or the War on Terror. The bombing started only after the US came into Iraq. So something for us to think about. In Europe, we know of the IRA, or the Irish Republican Army, which has been a problem for the British governments since the 1920s. In 1969, from 1969 to 1997, they launched an armed paramilitary campaign against the British forces in Ireland, and even carried out attacks outside of Ireland, where they bombed anything and everything that they possibly could bomb, which was remotely associated to Britain. Can we call this Catholic terrorism? No, nobody called it Catholic terrorism. Why? Because we didn't choose to label it that way. But on the other hand, any activity that a Muslim does, which is close to terrorism, it's called Islamic terrorist. Immediately the word Islamic comes first, terrorist comes later. So that whenever a Western person who has no idea about Islam, or even Muslims who have not read the Holy Quran, whenever they hear Islamic terrorists, they think, oh, it's something that I should be ashamed of. I should keep this away because I am sorry, I don't want to read this book. This book might convert me into becoming a terrorist, into carrying out suicide attacks. We need to open our brains and open our eyes and read the book and see what it says. and try to understand why there is a double standard when it comes to these labels. The IRA is called Irish Republican Army. It's a regional thing, whereas the terrorism that is happening in the north of Pakistan and in other places, we call it Islamic terrorists or Islamic terrorism. The Oklahoma City bombing of 1995, as soon as that happened, immediately all the papers jumped on it. Middle East conspiracy, Middle East conspiracy, the Middle East is involved, this is involved, that is involved. Who turned out to be the bomber? Timothy McVeigh, who was a sympathizer for the American militia, a local American guy. So this is what happens when the media immediately jumps onto something and immediately it's Middle East, Muslims, Islam, this, that, and then all of a sudden it actually turns out that it's somebody else. It's one of their own. And immediately as soon as it came out that it's Timothy McVeigh, the news died out as if it never happened. Nobody remembered Oklahoma City bombing the next year or the year after that. It finished, it fizzled off. Another big misconception that is out there is that Islam was spread by the sword. DeLacy O'Leary, a famous historian who wrote a book in 1923 called Islam at the Crossroads, writes in his book, and he writes it best when he says, history makes it clear that the legend of fanatical Muslims sweeping across the world, forcing Islam at the point of the sword over conquered races, is the most fantastic myth that historians ever repeated. So this famous historian in 1923 tells us that the greatest myth that historians have repeated, the greatest one, not the great one, the greatest myth that has been going around by historians is that Islam was spread on the point of the sword. There are 14 million Arabs, Christians, who are Christians for generations, who are still present in the Middle East today, who bear witness, who give shahada that Islam was not spread on the point of the sword. Why? Because it had been. We are all over the Middle East. What stopped us from converting those 14 million Christians as well? Muslims have ruled India for 1,000 years, yet 80% of India's population is still non-Muslim and bear witness that Islam was not spread by the sword. What stopped us from converting them on the point of the sword? We ruled them for 1,000 years. Emperor after emperor after emperor. We could have done it at any point in time, yet we did not. They bear witness. In Africa, they bear witness. In Indonesia, the largest Muslim population in the world, they bear witness. Which war took place? Which sword went to Indonesia? It mentions in Surah Al-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 125. You shall invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preachings, and argue with them in the best possible manner. Allah Ta'ala tells us that guide them, invite them to the way of the Lord. Do dawah, give them dawat. That's where the word dawah comes from. Invite them to the way of your Lord with what? With the sword? No. With beautiful preachings in the best possible manner that you can. And this is exactly how Islam has spread for many, many centuries now. Now we know that there is a campaign that's happening against Islam in the media. But it mentions in Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 54, that they planned and Allah planned. And Allah is the best of planners. I'll narrate to you the story of Yvonne Ridley, who was the chief reporter for the Sunday Express. She was with the Sunday Times, the Observer, the Daily Mirror, the Independent. She worked with the BBC TV, she worked with CNN, she worked for ITN. Fantastic resume and a great reporter, but a very staunch critic of Islam. And in 2001, September 2001, after 9/11, she went as an investigative reporter into Afghanistan to find out what these barbarians were doing there, especially to the women. That what these Taliban and all of these Muslims that are there, this barbaric race, this religion that was spread by the sword, what are these people doing in Afghanistan? And she wanted to expose them, expose the Muslims. She was repeatedly refused entrance visa, and so she decided to follow in the footsteps of a famous BBC reporter, John Simpson, who went across the border wearing a burqa. So she thought that since I'm having visa problems, I'll wear a burqa as well and I'll also sneak in. Unfortunately, or fortunately, she was discovered and she was held captive by the locals over there for 11 days, after which she was released. One of her captors asked her to convert. She refused. But she gave him her word that upon release, she will definitely at least read the Quran. She was impressed by the way that she was dealt with during her time as a captive in Afghanistan. The people or her captors showed her great respect. They even let her keep a key of the room where she was locked, so that if at any point you want to lock or if you want to change or something like that, you can lock the door from inside, nobody will come inside. They treated her with utmost respect. If she had to be searched, the guys went and fetched another lady, even if it took 2-3 hours, fetched her and said, now you frisk the woman in behind a parda, and if you find anything, let us know, and then so on and so forth. Yet if you see the cases that we have in the states of Muslim women who are held over there, tell me how they are being treated. Research on it. You have the example of Afia Siddiqui. Find out how she was interrogated and what kind of treatment was actually given to her. Now this woman, Yvonne Ridley, famous BBC reporter, those guys didn't know who she was. Yet they gave her a lot of respect, all of that, and then she promised that once she is released, she will go ahead and read the Holy Quran. Alhamdulillah, 2 years after being released, she accepted Islam. Today she still lives in London, she wears the hijab, and she is one of the greatest speakers on Islam. She is now working for an Iranian newspaper, and she is spreading the message of Islam like wildfire. And she is narrating her story and how she came to accept and embrace Islam. Which sword? She was released. 2 years later, she accepted Islam. It mentions in Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21, verse 18, when truth is heard against falsehood, falsehood perishes. For falsehood by its nature is bound to perish.